Hello, everyone. Welcome to the RAISE seminar. As always, we are very happy that you accepted our invitation, and we hope that this session is very fruitful for both our presenter and the attendees. Remember that the seminar is a 40-minute talk and then a 10-minute space for Q&A. But if you need to clarify something, just jump in or write your question in the chat and we will address it for you. For today's seminar, we have Diego Martin. He's a third-year PhD student in economics at Purdue University. He also works as a consultant at the Empirical Studies of Conflict at Princeton University, and his research focuses on labor and public economics. Today, he will present his work, Reverse Policies: Unintended Effects of Colombia's Illegal Crop Substitution Program on Child Development. Thank you, Diego, for being here, and the floor is yours.
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much for the introduction and also for having me here. As you were saying, today I'm going to talk about this paper that I've been working during the last year. So let's move on to the motivation. You say I have 40 minutes, right? Okay. So the motivation of my paper is about conditional cash transfers, basically because this is one of the main tools to face poverty in many countries in the world. Just to have a big picture of the idea behind CCTs is, for example, in Progresa, we know that we have, in Mexico, we have this program called Progresa that basically provides money to vulnerable families conditional on school enrollment. There are several results, and one of the most interesting results, at least for me and for my study, is that in Brazil and Philippines, CCTs reduce crime and conflict. In Uganda, we have this really cool paper that shows that CCTs decrease deforestation. However, there are also some papers showing that CCTs have unintended consequences, such as the declines in savings and also the increase in food prices. So basically, my research question in this paper, the big one, is what are the unintended effects of the CCTs? But in particular, I'm going to study the effect of the announcement, and I will explain more in detail what the announcement and not the actual program of the Substitution of Illicit Crops program. This is called PNIS. I will call it just PNIS because it's the Spanish translation and it's easier for me. And I'm going to study the effect of that program on child labor. And I argue that this is basically a CCT because the idea is to give cash transfer to farmers conditional on reducing coca production. So let me go to the next one. So I will be of the context. Just to have also a bit picture about the drug war, we know that the US has spent a lot of money in Colombia to reduce the production of cocaine, basically because they have the idea that if they can reduce the supply of drugs to the US, then there will be less consumption on the streets. And also Colombia is an important case because is the principal producer of coca leaves in the world, although it's not the only one. Peru is also a huge producer of coca, but Colombia is like the main one in different periods of time. Although it is illegal, right? So usually when I present this paper, people tend to think that this is a legal product, but no, it is illegal to produce coca leaves in Colombia. But something about the context for this country is that even though it's illegal, the military, army, and also the police are more important, are looking for other kind of crimes, and this is just like it is illegal, but there are not a lot of enforcement to not produce coca leaves. And also something important is that coca is the main component to produce cocaine. So that's the main relationship between coca and the drug and the drug war related with the US. And just to give you also an idea of how big this is, like how huge this problem is that, for example, in 2017, Colombia had the highest production of cocaine during the last 20 years. And if you put all the coca in just one place, it would be like the size of Chicago, which is one of the biggest cities in the United States. And now I'm going to start to talk more about the program. So basically, the PNIS was implemented in 2017, but it was announced in 2014. So let me show you the next graph. So here, this is an important point for my empirical strategy. So basically here I'm showing you coca cultivation per 1 hectares related to the coca in 2013. This is 1 year before the announcement. So basically in 2014, the government and also the FARC's members, basically they started to negotiate a peace agreement. So let me start again, just because I want everybody to understand more or less the big picture of the situation in Colombia. So in 2014, the Colombian government started to negotiate a peace process with FARC, which is a left-wing guerrilla. So basically, Colombia has been in a war for more than 50 years between the government and FARC, but not only them, there are also other different guerrillas from the left and from the right wings. But the important point is that in 2012, they started to negotiate. And then in 2014, both the government and FARC members, they went to the public and they say, we are going to create this program called PENIS. And what other studies in the university, other studies from professors in the University of Rosario, they have shown that after the announcement, there was a huge increase in coca. So basically here you see that after 2014, there is a huge increase in coca. And then the program was implemented in 2017, and we see a decline, but it's still not comparable with the huge increase in production that we had before. So basically my hypothesis is that since the farmers started to produce a lot of coca because they thought that in the future they will have some financial support from the government, my hypothesis is they use child labor for that purpose. So just to have you also like kind of what are we talking here? So basically here I have 4 different pictures. In the first picture you see coca trees, so they are small, they need to receive sunlight directly. And also then if we go to picture B, so here we have Coca Farms. This is just to show you that it's not that you have just 1 tree in your backyard. I'm talking about like a lot of hectares producing, like cultivating with coca. And then we have child working farms. So historically speaking, children have worked more in rural areas, especially in poor countries or developing countries such as Colombia. So that basically the idea is that they collect the leaves. So it's just like picking up trees or oranges in the US, rather than here what they do is like they collect the leaves. So please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. So now about the data. So here I'm using the annual household survey from 2009 to 2019. So for those ones who are familiar with the data in Colombia, I'm using the GIH, which is like a repeated cross-section with demographic characteristics at the individual household level. For those ones who are more familiar with the data in the US, it's exactly the same as the CPS, but just for Colombia. So basically I can see all the households in Colombia, and also I can see all the individuals within one household. And with that information, I can define child labor as children between 10 and 7 years old who spend most of the time working during the last week. So that's from this data, I get all the outcomes and also all the characteristics for the kids, and also for the households, the parents who live in those households. And also I have data of course from coca, for coca production between 2009 and 2019. And some people have asked me, like, how can you get that data if producing coca is illegal? So basically, since the United States have spent a lot of money in Colombia, the United Nations has like a project to measure illegal crops, not only in Colombia, in different countries, using satellite images. So basically they took a picture from the satellite, and then they use machine learning models to classify what is a coca tree and what is not. And then they use, they verify those grids, because it's like 1 kilometer per 1 kilometer. They verify if there is coca there using pictures from flights from helicopters. So basically a helicopter goes there, take a picture and see if there is actually coca. So that's the main source of coca that I have. And then I use for my difference in difference, I'm gonna use one of the variations is before and after 2014, and the other variation is gonna be having historical production of coca, especially coca in 1994. And for that variable, I have data from basically This is the National Narcotics Directorate, but now it has a different name. But basically, it was from that source. And the final sample of my data represents Colombia rural areas. I only focus in rural areas with like 9 million of individuals in about 3 million of households. Okay. So this is just a quick table of descriptive statistics. So just to give you an idea of my data, so I have like 18% of child labor. Children are on average 13 years old, more or less the same female and males. They also have access to health, and they also live with the parents, and also have a lot of controls for at the household level. So I have household head is female if it is single, the years of education of the household, the number of people living in the same household, also the number of children, different dummies. I also have like an income total per household, and all the characteristics that you can think for the household. And I also include a lot of controls at the municipality level. Just for the sake of time, I don't explain in this table, but all the table is like in the full in the draft of the article. So now let's move on to the empirical strategy. So I was saying before, basically I'm going to use a difference in difference model. The time variation is before and after 2014, the announcement, the year when the government announced the creation of the pennies, and the individual variation. So the other part of the interaction is going to be kids that live in municipalities with historical coca production. And when I say historical coca production, I meant those municipalities that have coca in 1994. So in this picture, I'm showing you the coca cultivation in thousands for 3 countries, Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru. These 3 countries produce like 98% of the total coca leaves in the world. An important point here is that before 1994, Colombia was actually not the main producer of coca leaves. Rather than Peru was the one that was leading, was producing all the coca leaves in the world. But then after 1994, the Bolivian government and the Peruvian government, of course, with the backing of the US, they started some strategies to attack these two countries and reduce the coca cultivation. So what happened is that all the coca cultivation moved to Colombia. So basically before the 1994, Colombia was just the main exporter of cocaine to the world, but we didn't actually produce coca. And then after 1994, we became like the Silicon Valley for the drug production. So basically we grow the coca and we also convert that coca in cocaine and we export that to the rest of the world. So that's why I'm gonna use this as an exogenous variation in my difference in difference model. So before to show you just the model, let me show you the raw data of my dependent variable, which is child labor. So here I'm showing you the child labor rate. So this is a ratio. So the child labor rate with respect to the child labor rate in 2013, which is 1 year before the announcement, which is the red line. And I'm dividing the child labor into municipalities with coca in 1994 and municipalities without coca in 1994. Something that I also should say, just to have you, like everybody understand, is that, so for example, the United States is divided in states and the states in counties. In Colombia, we have departments, which is similar to states in the United States. And then we have municipalities, which is like counties. And we have like 1,100 municipalities in Colombia. So basically, the important point here is that before 2003, you see that they have more or less the same trend in municipalities with coca and without coca in 1994. But then after the announcement, you see this huge gap that even continues after the implementation of the pennies. So this is also a reason why I use the announcement instead of the actual program, is because I see this huge gap after 2014. So now, let me know if you have any questions. So let me show you the difference in difference. So the actual equation that I'm estimated. So as I was saying, it's just a difference in difference model. The important coefficient here is beta 1. And this is the interaction of the municipalities with coca in 1994 and now 19. And as I was saying, I have a lot of individual characteristics. My errors arose a robust and cluster at the municipality level, using that paper from Duflo 2004, Duflo and others, and she said that we actually introduce the robust standard cluster at the level of the treatment, and my treatment is at the municipality level. So before showing you my results, the main assumption that I use in my difference model is, of course, parallel trends. So basically, the assumption here is that in the absence of the 2014 announcement, child labor in municipalities with historical production, with municipalities with Coca in 1994, will have followed a similar trajectory than municipalities with historical Coca production. So there are some ways to test this assumption. One of the ways is try to use this event study, where instead of using just one variable that is equal to 1 after 2014 and 0 before, what you can do is use like different interactions before and after the treatment. So for example here, so before and after 2014. So for example here, we have 4 years before 2014, and then I have 6 years after 2014. So, and the omitted variable here is 2013. So I basically compare all the coefficients with respect to 2013, and the idea is to see. So in the ideal world, that is what I'm getting. There should not be any statistic, any coefficient, like in this case, any delta should be statistical significant before the announcement. So that should be the next graph. So this is the graph that I was talking about. So this is for the event study and also for others, the assumption of parallel trends. So as you can see before, so this is all related to 2013, which is 1 year before the announcement. And as you can see, all the deltas in this case, they are not statistically significant from 0. Also for those that they are not so familiar with this kind of picture. So here I'm showing you basically the solid line is the delta. So each of the deltas. And then this line is the confidence interval, right? So one delta is statistically significant when there is any part of this gray is not actually crossing 0. So for example, here what we are seeing is that before 2013, we don't have any delta that is statistically significant. And after 2013, we actually see like in 2014 and 2015, there is no effect. And I see the first year that is actually effect is in 2016. So here, as you can see, this is different from 0 because the gray area is not crossing 0. And then this year is when actually the program started. So that's why I see that there is a decline in the statistical significance, but still the delta is positive. And then I see that the delta is positive for the last years, which is 2018 and 2019. This is a very interesting result because I see that even though the program was already implemented, although I have to say that the program is implemented, but it doesn't cover all the municipalities because the process to get the farmers and get like all the money to put in the rural areas takes a lot of time. And yeah, this government hasn't done that really efficient. So that's why even after the program started, I still see an increase in child labor. Okay, I don't know if you have any questions. Okay, so let me go to the main results. So basically for the main results here, I'm using the dependent variable is being employee, and I'm showing you the results for my difference in difference model, where I collapse basically the periods before and after the announcement in 2014. And the interaction is the first row, and I divide the samples in only youth, girls and boys, and I define this as children between 10 and 17 years old. And I also study the effects for adults. So I have a sample for 18 and older. As you can see, I find an increase in the probability of working for children who live in municipalities with historical coca production after 2014, when the announcement was made by the government. So basically, one youth who lives in a municipality with coca in 1994 is 4 percentage points more likely to work after the announcement in 2014. And I also find a result for girls and boys, even though the coefficients are not statistically significant between them. I see that boys, but in relative, they are more or less the same. So I don't really find a difference between boys and girls. And I found a result which is actually different from youth. I also find a result, but this is statistically significant only at 10%. So this is like the main results for the paper that I have so far. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So for the robustness, well, some of the comments that I received from this paper is that I don't believe in you 1994 history. So I say, okay, that's a fair point. So what I do is to use coca production in 1999, and I choose this year because the government, the US government with the Colombian government launched a huge anti-drug operation in Colombia, which is called Plan Colombia, and it was launched in 2000. So I take the municipalities with coca before 2000, and that's why I use 1999. But as you can see, I found more or less the same effects. The coefficients are similar, they are all positive, and they are also statistically significant. And actually, I found I have more like more star for adults, but that's not very important. The important is that all the betas are positive. I used a different one. Okay, I have a typo there. So basically here I'm using the municipalities with coca before the announcement. So that will be in 2013. And I divide the municipalities with those that produce a lot of coca, so below, above the median, and those below the median. And here I'm also finding a positive effect, which is really strong for youth and similar for girls and boys. And I'm not finding anything for adults. So actually my result for youth, I think is robust in the sense that it is positive and there is an increase in child labor after an announcement in municipalities with coca. But for adults, the result is not robust. And this is because based on the literature, what happened, like when you go to the farmers, the idea is that it's not that the adults started to, like some adults just joined to the labor force. It's more that the adults spend more time collecting coca, and what they do is that they start to use the children. That's my hypothesis behind, and that's why that result that the adults that result that I don't find a statistically significant effect for adults, that's how it like reconcile with my main hypothesis that there is an increase in child labor. Okay, so this is for the robustness. And then I have different heterogeneous effects. So I have basically, here I'm showing you labor force participation. So the idea is that before I just used children who report that they were working. And now for this one, I use children that they say that they are working, but also there are some children who report that they are seeking jobs. So basically that's the idea here. So I expand the dependent variable. So more children are saying that they are working or they are seeking employment. And what I found is an effect, an increase in probability for youth, and I don't find anything for others. So it's similar to the table before. I also do this, like open the sample, divide the samples by age categories because it's different. Like a child who are 10 years old is different from a child who is 16 years old. So I opened the categories of the ages, and I found that the youngest children, so those children who are between 10 and 15 years old, are the ones who are they are actually working more instead of I don't find any effect only for boys, but this is small. Only boys that they are between 16 years and 17 years old, there is actually an increase in child labor, but not for the youngest, but not for the youth and the girls, and the main effect is for the youngest ones. And then I started I started to look for like different channels. So basically this table is telling me that, and also on the tables, I have an effect for girls, but it's still statistically significant only at 10%. And for the oldest ones, I don't find any effect. So my question was like, okay, so my study is telling me that boys are going to work more. So what happened with girls? And then I use this variable that is the dependent variable here is childcare. So it's basically, the question is that do you take care of your siblings at your household? And you say yes or no. And I use that variable as a dependent variable. And what I found is an increase only for girls. So basically um, girls are 4 percentage points more likely to work in municipalities with coca production in 1994 after the announcement in 2014. And I don't find any effect for boys, adults, or youth. So my like kind of the data is telling me that I see an increase in child labor, but that doesn't mean, especially for boys, but that doesn't mean that girls are not working. That means that girls are staying at home, taking care of the children. Um, and I also have other explanations. So basically here I'm exploring the idea that bigger families have like a child labor increase in bigger families. So in the figure of the left, the sample is just the families with 2 to 5 members. And in the right figure is those families with 6 or more. And as you can see is that for the smallest families, there is only, the coefficient is only statistically significant for the last period, so that would be 2019, while for the bigger families, the coefficient is statistically significant actually in 2016, and also for the last 2 years. So it's similar to what I showed you before. And so in that sense, the result is more robust for bigger families than for smaller families. And one mechanism that I think is super important for the study, and it's also like really mentioned for the literature, is the idea that the households that they are poorer, those are the households that are actually going to use children to work. So here I'm dividing the sample between those households with income below the median and income above the median. And as you can see in the left graph, we have a result for the last years, even after the pennies was implemented. So that would be the last 3 years, rather than for the families above the median. I don't find any effect which is statistically different from 0, even though the deltas are positive. But I don't find any effect for those kids living in the richer families. And I think that's all that I have. So in conclusion, as I started in the introduction, I basically said that the pennies is similar to a conditional cash transfer in the sense that they are paying farmers to stop producing coca. The literature has shown that the pennies was announced in 2014, but implemented in 2017. So the 3-year gap created a huge increase in coca production. So basically, families see the announcement as, if we grow coca today, we will get aid from the government in the future. And my story, what it's saying is that is true, that's what happened. And then what we see is that they are using children to produce more coca. And I also see that there is an increase in adult labor, although that is less robust according to my results. And of course, this is a key question because child labor is one of the gravest violations of children's rights in the world. And my paper aims to fill the gap with the evidence about unintended consequences of announcements made by politicians, especially the effects of these kind of announcements in the labor market. That's all I have for today. So let me know if you have any questions.
Hi, Diego, thank you. Yes, I think Daniel has a question, please.
Hi, Diego, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. First, fantastic work, congratulations. I mean, I think it's really well documented, these effects over labor force participation, and I mean, how children do respond to this, how households do respond to this kind of government announcement and changing policies. But I was thinking in here, how does this actually translate to choices? I mean, because depending on the previous situation, I mean, if these children do engage in the labor market, I mean, is this a illegal labor market, legal labor market? Are these children crowding out education by engaging in the labor market? I mean, all other sorts of outcomes that we could try to understand to make, to make the link, I mean, between the effect of the program over social welfare, like, because children, of course, I mean, we don't want children to be working, they should be schooling, but how do this actually translate to these more social welfare effects of the program?
Yeah, absolutely. No, great question. Thank you very much. Yeah, so my research, the idea is to move to school outcomes. So basically, the idea is to see if there is a reduction in school performance, and also something that the literature has studied a lot is the variable of dropouts. So basically, if they are saying we are gonna work and not go to school. So I completely agree with you, and the idea with my research is to start to work on that data. But the data is huge and tricky. But yeah, I will do that soon. So enough. But you have to do right. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. I think that Maria Michaelis Beatrice from Princeton, she has done some amazing work on this as well, on this kind of a specific capital that children accumulate when they start working in coca production places. So maybe that's an interesting paper to relate to as well.
Oh yeah. No, that paper is great. It's actually from Peru. So they use a similar story that I have. One outcome that I think that she has and is great is the idea that those children that were exposed to coca when they were younger, they are more likely to go to jail, and that will be an amazing data to get from Colombia. Okay.
Hey, Diego. Yeah, thank you very much for being here with us. I have like two questions. First is you're using the surveys, like the annual surveys. How do you differentiate between, like, if the child says that they are working, how do you differentiate between those that go and brew coca, for instance, and other kind of labor, because you are taking out the income of a family, saying like they grew coca? How do you rule out the possibility of they are doing something different?
Oh yeah. I see your point. Like they don't need to work
Exactly.
on picking on collecting coca. Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of things that I have done. One thing is I have a one variable that is saying basically where do you work. So for those ones that they report that they are working, they are like different categories. One, for example, is working in an office, and another one which is working in the farm. So what I did was only use those kids that they report that they are working on farms, and the results are similar. So I see an increase in child labor. It's still far from coca, but at least it's closer to farm. Another one that I use is like combining, just use municipalities with coca, and I take the municipalities with more coca. So I have like a lot of coca and farm. So it's a lot of connection that I can do, but it's the best I can do because one of the problems that I have in general is that I don't see the children are working in actually collecting coca, right? So my evidence is more like suggestive evidence, more than a concrete evidence about that. And that's basically a lack of the data. That the data doesn't exist, I will be more than happy to create it. But for now, that's the best that I can do with the data that I have.
Yeah, I don't know if Sylvia has a question and she unmuted.
Hello, Diego. I do have a question. So, do you think there is kind of a seasonality on your data? So I know the data from this survey you used is taken just a couple of times in the year, not like the whole year. So have you taken into account that, or are those data collected always at the same time? So I don't know, September from each year, or is it like you are taking into account that? Because I can see that sometimes you need people working in coffee, for an example, because it is coffee time. And if the survey was made during coffee time, then you can see that. But I don't know if there is seasonality on coca plantations or something like that that should be taken into account.
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you. So actually, so yeah, there are like two questions. So one question there is like about the seasonality of coca. So basically, before there was kind of seasonal, like some months were better to produce coca, but now for the increase, like in science, coca is actually pretty good, and that's one of the reasons why farmers produce coca is basically because you can have coca all the year. So basically, you have like a tree, and that tree gives like coca leaves after 2 years and for the rest of the year. So there is no such as, it's not like you only have coca in certain months. But I still think it's a fair point, and I use fixed effects in one of my robustness that will be at the quarter. So it will be each 3 months. So I basically divide the year in 4 different periods, and I have fixed effects for that. And it's also related with the question about the survey. So the survey, I know that is collected monthly, but the data that I have, I don't see like the different months. I see the different quarters. So I use also fixed effects at the quarter to kind of control with this idea that the idea that you just mentioned, that child labor can be like a seasonal condition. So to model that, I just use fixed effects at the quarter level. I don't know if the correct word is quarter, but it's every 3 months.
Okay, perfect. And do you think there is kind of a complementary and less than like not substitution, but these children just work in the farms and like they change up between crops?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, that definitely can happen. So one thing that I'm exploring is actually, instead of using municipalities with coca, I'm using municipalities with coffee, and see if I can find a similar result. So far, I haven't found anything, which means that after 2014, the story that we started to use children to produce coffee is not supported by the data, because I don't find anything. So it's more that instead of producing coffee, they actually started to produce, or at least work more in municipalities with coca instead of with coffee.
So there is like more than a complementary thing. There is a substitution, like that's what you see on the data. Oh, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
Diego, could you go back to the empirical specification slide?
Yeah, sure.
Please. Just to make a double check.
This one, right?
Yeah. Okay. So department fixed effects and year fixed effects. Okay, so you are basically exploiting the differential effects for like this coca production on the baseline, right? From 1994. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is totally exciting. Nice.
Thank you. I'm taking notes to explain better in the paper.
Have you, Diego, looked something related to migration? Because when you compare like these kind of years, one possibility also is families leaving some place, and then you have the share of people like working is higher, but it's because someone is leaving or something like that.
There is, I can do something, but it's not the best. So the best thing that, like the idea will be to know who is leaving and who not, but the data is not telling me that. So the data is telling me who is staying in one place for more than 5 years. So I actually can see like the non-migrants, right? Like the people who stay there. So in one of my specifications, I stay just for those kids, like just for those families who stay in a place for more than 5 years, and I still see an increase in child labor. So even if I control for those people who are leaving, I found that those kids that actually they stay, they work more. But that's also an important point.
Yeah, no, I was thinking because maybe if you also use the 2018 census, you can reconstruct. Yeah, it can help you to reconstruct some people because it has information of where did you come from, like in the past, I don't know how many years. So it will be maybe complementary to the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another thing is right now the DANE has this survey called Pulso Social, where they ask questions for the same family. So maybe you can see kind of something about migration on those people. Maybe.
What is the name of the thing?
Pulso Social. So what they do is they are taking people before the pandemic that were on the VIH, and they are asking a follow-up 1 year later. Just for the household, but you can see if people are moving, because I believe there is kind of that question, or I don't know, but maybe it can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Got it.
something else that I think it's kind of to tighten up the story, I would say, is to try to understand the income dynamics or perhaps the political targeting of this program, if there was like more or less like differential incentives regarding to, okay, so are we focusing this policy in a given municipality or in another? So perhaps, I don't know, like trying to make this kind of investigating by the vote share of the incumbent party in a given municipality, if they're focusing on some sort of sense like this, especially if you want to highlight this kind of adversarial effects of government policies, I would say. And another nice thing I would say is, I mean, again, relating to this more social welfare, etc., it's if there is a price facting happening here. Like, is this government policy affecting, because I mean, if Colombia is the main producer, it can be affecting the coca prices. So if there is like a more sort of a price affecting here, they are making people choose differentially between which labor market to supply their workforce into. So perhaps, I don't know, like relating to this kind of price, the papers that use this price IVs or something like this with this geographical geographical identification that you're making here. I think that could be a nice direction as well.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I think I need to explain. I need to see if it's just prices, because also in this time, well, also I mean with the fixed effect at the year fixed effect, I rule out that possibility that there is a increasing in price, at least for the year, because that's homogeneous for all the municipalities. But I still need to emphasize the fact that this is more about the announcement and it's not just the prices and also the evaluation. So basically now 1,000 Colombian pesos is like a lot of dollars. So, and that's like with the time. So now it's more and more dollars. So I also need to explain that in detail. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, perhaps an easy thing to do will be like just to let municipalities have this differential trend as well. Like just leave them with a linear trend and see how. Basically, it would be like to take out this year fixed effect and see if the results remain robust. I would say yes from what you presented, but it's a nice thing to check.
Yeah, absolutely. Got it. Thank you.
Does someone else have any questions, comments on something? Okay, so Diego, thank you very much for being with us today. It was a pleasure, and I hope all of you enjoyed this conversation. I think, yeah, Daniel, you wanted to say something else? Like you were?
No, just congratulations, Diego, for the amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great presentation. Thank you very much for being with us here in Race, and hope to see you soon in 2 weeks for a new presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much for all your comments.
Remember
Bye-bye.
that we're having a YouTube channel with all these sessions recorded. So in case you would like to check it again or something like that, and we will make a thread with all the conclusions from the discussion and Diego's contact information.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
See you.
Bye.